Energy of the great James Brown. Speaking of looking back and reevaluating things, James Brown too had his demons. As most people have their demons. Nobody's perfect. He who has sinned cast the first stone, said Jesus Christ. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I think that everyone who quotes Jesus Christ is essentially paraphrasing. Anyways, all this week we have been receiving news of statues being taken down, some even beheaded, or just simply under attack, including that of Winston Churchill, who once fought against the terrible Nazis and was one of the most celebrated statesmen of all time. Now, he's branded a racist. The thing is, it has always been my thought and my belief that one day we will all, for one reason or another, be in the wrong side of history. This generation will be remembered as the one that still struggled to rid itself from the shackles of various forms of discrimination and seemed to do its very best to destroy the environment. There's no doubt in my mind, for example, that people 100 years from now will look at pictures of happy people smiling, having a jolly good time barbecuing, and cringe. Not to mention battery farming and blood sports. I mean, really, no doubt in my mind. But even when I look in my own life, there are things I've done a handful of years ago, or weeks ago, and so on, that I'm not proud of. There are things I did last week that I'm not proud of either. But when did we stop forgiving people for making mistakes in the past? This whole thing about grown-ups getting into trouble for things they did or wrote as teenagers or in their early 20s, something as fickle as a tweet. It's an insane witch hunt. There are some things that are unforgivable, like murder and rape, but listen, we're talking about tweets here and stuff like that, and these are things that can ruin people. But about the statues being taken down, I'm not against it. I wouldn't be against, for example, the statue of Oliver Cromwell being removed from the UK House of Parliament for his massacre of and war crimes against the Irish people during the 1600s. A few weeks ago, I actually called for the removal of the statue of Albert Pike from Washington, D.C. for his unforgivable involvement with the Ku Klux Klan, and called instead for the erection of a statue for Little Richard. I wasn't trying to be provocative, I was serious. But there's a difference between removal or replacement and destruction. So when I look at monuments and statues around the world commemorating questionable people or event being destroyed, I cringe. I get a bit outraged because given where I stand on this side of the argument, and I think my position on the argument is very clear, I don't want to be on the side of anything that even by the actions of some of its ignorant components recalls totalitarianism in any way. Let's face it, even when people destroy a statue of Christopher Columbus, seen now as a symbolic figure of colonialism par excellence, beheaded, although I agree with raising awareness of the evils of colonialism, of course, I can't help but liken this act to the destruction of cultural heritage that has occurred at the hands of totalitarian regimes since the beginning of times, like the burning of books by Nazi Germany. And one of the reasons why destruction of monuments or cultural heritage is wrong is because monuments and cultural heritage helps us understand where we have come from and where we need to be going. So instead of destroying them, I would be in favor of moving them to cultural institutions or museums so that they can be studied and they can continue to live as symbols of the way that humanity was. Just like the best way to learn right or wrong is by experience, we need to have a reference point for several idealisms and perspectives of the past in order to form our own thoughts and understanding of ourselves and the world around us, and potentially to change it.